especially Raz, for this event. It's a great pleasure to be here with you today. Today I will talk about top 10 X++ mistakes I encountered at my code and performance reviews. I prepared 10 main topics and I will go into details of these topics. But before start, let's talk about a little bit about me. I'm a solution architect and lead developer at DMR. Also, I am co-founder of DMR. I'm Microsoft certified trainer over 11 years, and I am Microsoft Business Application MVP for 1 year. I started to write X++ at 2006 with Accepted 3, and then I worked all of the versions. I have a blog and YouTube channel, which I am trying to hit 1,000 subscribers over there. You can help me with that. Also, I have LinkedIn and Twitter account. Also, if you're interested in wood carving, I am an amateur wood carver, so you can follow me on Instagram if you're interested. So let's start. Today, I prepared 10 major topics for you. These are the main topics, actually. I will talk about in details of these topics. First of all, of course, most important part is always tables, because if your data structure is not correct, then everything goes wrong. So I will talk about tables, properties, index, and other table things. Then we will talk about select statement and set-based operations. These are one of the most important parts, because most of the performance issues relate to these statements. And then I will talk about form codes and especially display method and active method. And these days, naming is very important, and we are confusing about especially extension naming. I will talk about that too. And code placement, object copying, change company and cross company functionality. I will talk about comments and hard codes. Then I will talk about best practices of object-oriented programming. Let's start with tables. Okay, first of all, our main goal is collecting data. So we need to create a good, well-designed table structure, database structure. For that, we need to consider all the data formats very carefully. In that content, we have tables and field properties. Most of the time, I am seeing these are not set up correctly or completely ignored. What are these? I want to show you examples. And I am using 2012 because I want to run some jobs. So, it's more fast here. But these examples all are same in Dynamics 365. Let's see the tables property. For tables, I checked one of too many. We have many properties in table, but some of them are important. So I check these one, and I prepared for you. First of all, label. Every table should have a label. Also, if your table is applicable, you can set title fields, then cache lookup and table groups. These are the important properties. I will, due to time limit, I cannot go into details of these properties, but if you want to learn more, you can reach out to me and I can send you the links or videos, etc. Of course, the most important property is primary index and cluster index. Every table should have these, and if you're not sure, the surrogate key is there for you. And if you have a replacement key functionality, you need to use replacement key. Then, if you need to follow created by or modified by information, you can check this properties too. And then we have some field properties. These tables is for a sample table. For that, for example, if you have a primary key ID, it must be mandatory, yes. Also, it should be allowed false, because you will create a relational database with that ID, and it mustn't be changed, because when it's changed, your relation is broken. So you need to set these properties. Also, if you want to create field, most of the time use extended data types. If you not use extended data type, you cannot create a good logic for your data structure. It's the best practice to use extended data types or base enum in your database fields. Okay, let's go back to our slide. The second one is index consideration. Again, index is a whole another topic. It's a very big topic, and it's not just for X++, you know. But be careful about indexes. First of all, learn about primary index and cluster index. Learn about what is included column, what is column store index. There are lots of new options you can use. You need to learn these details, and you need to consider your where clause to when you use a where clause, look at the indexes, and if there is a relevant index, you can freely use these where clauses. But if you have a big table, especially, then you need to consider to create new indexes, etc. But of course, I know the beginning of the project, it's not easy to implement all the correct indexes, but make sure you make sure you will follow the data. Then if data is created differently, you need to create a different index, etc. Consider indexing is a lifetime process. You need to follow your data and create a proper index. Sometimes you need to remove unnecessary index, because if there is unnecessary index, it's also a performance issues. The second one is the third one is fields and data types. As I mentioned, it's the best practice to use extended data type or base enum in your table fields. There are lots of good income in that using that extended data types. Before creating fields, consider what will this field, how it will be contain data. What I mean, for example, I see lots of fields, unnecessary long fields, or unnecessary descriptions, etc. You are creating too big fields for small size data. Don't do that. Also, don't create repeated fields. Also, I see, for example, in relational database, if you create a relation with ID, don't bring another fields from that table to your table. These are the bad decisions. You need to update or you delete these fields in every transaction. Then it's also slows your application. Again, now let's talk about table methods. These, we have lots of standard table methods, but these are used in wrong ways. Let me show you some table methods. In table we have validate write, validate field, and validate delete methods. These are for validation. For example, if you want to create a delete validation, you can write in validate delete, but most of the time I see people writing codes in delete method. Even they are writing a if statement and closing the super for validation. It's not correct. Do your validation in validate method. If you want to write a functionality, if some records deleted, you want to for example, send a email, or want to update some another record, etc. Of course, you can write then in delete method, but don't write validation in delete, insert, or update method. Again, don't write functionality in validation method. Validation method for only validation. If you follow these rules, your application is more smooth, and other developers, when they want to add new functionality or want to find a functionality, they can easily find. So be careful about using table methods. Also, I will talk about form methods. There are similar methods in data source, you know, but if you write in tables, it became global. So if you have a global requirement, then you need to write, of course, in tables. Okay. The other one is delete action. Also, last of the time, the developer forgetting to set delete actions. Now we have in relation, we can implement delete action in relations. So it's very easy to implement delete actions. When you forget delete actions, your data is broken, and there will be orphan records. If there are orphan records, your reporting or your functionalities will be broken. Also, they will give you false results to you, and then it's very hard to find the cause of these misleads. So be careful about delete action. If two table has relation, most of the time you need to implement a delete action for them. It's a very important subject, and most of the time it's forgotten. So be careful about delete actions. The other one is database normalization. I see lots of large tables. You know, in AX 2012, our database is normalized, and we have now a normalized database. Normalization is a global standard. You can check out in internet. There are lots of documentation about this. But for my perspective, don't create too large table. If your select statement contains, for example, 30 fields, then there is probably something you can normalize. So be consider to make your table small, and with that, of course, sometimes it makes much joins. It needs joins a lot, but for that, you can create right now views or entities. Entities are working fine, you know, especially with Dynamics 365. So create database. Be careful about database normalization, I can say. Okay, the second one, temporary tables. There are lots of requirements in our application. We used temporary tables, right? But sometimes, especially junior developers, don't understand correctly temporary tables. Also, when they try to use, they couldn't get the results, so they are using regular table as a temporary table. What they are doing, they are creating records. Then, for example, if it's a form, when is form closed, they are deleting all records. Don't do that, because it's also creating a big database transaction. Also, it's broke the indexes. You know, it's fragmented. Tables index became fragmented. Then it slows. So don't use like that. But if you used temporary table, be careful about that too. You know, in memory tables, it stores data in memory and file system. TempDB is a SQL Server TempDB. If you use TempDB, you can use joins, but if you use in-memory tables, there are lots of restriction about it. Be careful about using temp table. I have some examples for temporary table. Let me show you that. I will open these two. Most of the time, people confusing about the temp tables variable. So I will show you some examples for that. I am selecting customer table like this and creating a new record in this temp table, CusVentrans TMP CusVentrans table. Then I am showing the result to you. Then I am pointing this second table buffer to this one. Then I'm showing this one to you. Let's see the results, then talk about it. I run this query, and here is the results. First, in first temp table, we have these records. The second table, when we point the first, the second, they have the same result set, as you can see. Then I am inserting in a new record in second temp table. Then I am showing the results. As you can see, here is my new record. But when I info this first one, I see this one too, and for two, I see the same. So it means when you point like this, these are showing the same buffer zone. So when you insert some record, one of them, it's also inserted another. Actually, not inserted. They are showing the same result set. So be careful about this. When you want two different variables, you need to create two different records for this variable. And the second one, sometimes I see people using a regular table as a temporary table. When you use regular table like this, setTMP with setTMP, be careful. All the table methods and detection is still working. So if you want to create record, use do inserts or do update or do deletes. But I'm not suggesting to use these kind of like this. There are lots of temporary tables which you can use about cast table, or as you can see here, we have CusVentrans, CusVentTable, TMPs, or you can easily create new ones. Of course, be careful if you also people are copying. If you copy a regular table for temporary table, make sure you delete it, all detection methods, etc., because they are also copying too. Okay, let me go back to my slide. Yes, the last one is extension or new table. Lots of people asking about this to me. In my opinion, if you add, for example, 5 new fields to, for example, cast table, you consider. I am asking my consultant. Where will this field will be shown? In cast table form, and if when I select cast table, every time I need these fields, etc. If the answer is yes, then use extension, of course, because it will create an extension and it will be work like a one table. Then you can reach everywhere when you select cast table or data source, etc. But if it is just storing data, it's not, there is no requirement like that. Then you can create a new table related to cast table, and you can use like this. So tables are one of the most important part of our software. I think there are lots of things to consider. If you set up a good database structure, then your application will, of course, work fine. But if you have problems in database structure, then you cannot correct these errors with code or with select statements, etc. Every time you have problems. So take time to create good database structure. Yes. Second one. We continue. Select statements. Again, these are big topics. There are lots of things to talk because of, again, time limit. I will show you some examples and point some big areas. Let me jump into the examples. First, we will talk about join instead of while statement. I see lots of these examples in my code reviews. Let me show you. And this. Okay, we have a dynamic summit test table. In this table, we have some fields, and I created some records for this one. This table is also save data per company no, so it's not have data area ID field on it. Also, I have create some data for you for testing. Okay. So when I create a select statement like this, and I need to use event table, let's think we are creating an inventory journal for this table, and we need to find event table. You can write like this, and it works fine, but it's not fast. So you need to join this to your summit table like this. Of course, sometimes you need to check if event table exists, etc. Then, of course, you can write like that. But if you write like this, it's way faster than the other one, also because in this writing you have one select statement for dynamic summit test table and one for every record for event table, so that you are creating lots of SQL statements, and it's bad for performance consideration. I will run this one, but its performance is related to database and also the CPU, etc. Sometimes not giving the correct answer, but let's talk. It takes this time, and the other one is taking most of the time taking much more time than join. But it's not easy to see these 100 in 100 records. If you have 1,000 or 10,000, you can see the actual result. The second one, don't write inner while select like this. Do the join. I see lots of these kind of while selects, inner while selects. I know sometimes it's hard to get join, so you want to create a clear data structure, but it's not best practice and it's not fast. So write like this. It's more fast, and it's best practice to use. And when you understand the logic, it's not hard. So use join instead of while selects. The second one, field list. Let me again show you these examples of them. I see lots of times people not using field list, especially in big tables like cost table or cost trans. They have over 100 fields combined. But if you need only 3 of them, it's not wise to use like this. You should use like this. You should select your field, and if you use like this, only returns the 3 fields for you. SQL will return 3 fields for you, and it's way faster than the other one. So always, not always, use field list. But if you're gonna send this table buffer to another method or you will create a parm, etc. If it's a variable like this, then don't use field list, because the other methods and other people don't know which field list you used, so they probably have problems for that. It's best practice not to use field list if you want to send this table buffer to another method, etc. Okay, but other than that, always use this field list. The second one used where clause to align with index statements. I see lots of where clauses, but they don't have any related indexes. So when you write a where clause, especially in a transaction table, a big table, look at the tables, and if there is a relevant index, of course you can write. But if it is not, always follow this query and be careful about that. It will probably have performance issues. So for where clauses, it's important to align with the indexes. So be careful about that too. And the other one is, let me show you this one. Okay. So we have validate write and validate delete methods in our tables. For example, for this one, I have a validation. Let me show you my validate write method. In validate write method, I am checking if the trans state is smaller than today, I am giving an error. You should use check field again. If you have problems or if you are not sure how to use validate write or these kind of methods, there are thousands of examples in standard. So choose one or two tables, for example. For me, it's a cast table, invent table, or cast group. This kind of table has lots of validations. So when I have problem with code, I will check the standard code and okay, they write like this, and I am copying the correct style. Okay, you can use standard table as a tutorial. I always do that. So I have this validate write method, but when I used insert like this, the validation is not working. For example, I am inserting 6 days before a record, so it will automatically insert this record. But if you want to call validation, you need to call like this. And if you sometimes you can do this intentionally, because when you creating any data, you will sometimes you know the structure, and you don't want to validate this because you are sure. But if you are not, and if, for example, if data is stored from another system or etc., always good to call the validate write method before inserting. Okay. The other one is database transaction. You know, we have TTS begin and TTS commit structure. I see lots of big transactions. For example, last year we have a customer and they are creating 50,000 line record, a journal which has 50,000 line record in one transaction, and the committing that transaction is taking too long, and it's blocking lots of other SQL statements, etc. So when you have this kind of requirement, be consider about this transaction. If you have options, you can divide this kind of big data or big transaction in, for example, 1,000 records. It's depends on your servers, but again, be careful about big transactions. Then second one is always try to use set-based operation. We have set-based operations like insert record set, update record set, or delete from. But sometimes if your table is containing delete method or insert method, these set-based operation became fullback to row-based. Be careful about that, because sometimes people thinks, okay, I write set base, or it will work always like a set base, but it's not. If your tables update, insert, or delete method overridden, then it will go back to row based statement. So be careful about that. Also, I have one example. You can update translate like this, but it's way faster to use update record set like this, because this will create one update transaction and it will automatically update all records translate with today. So use set base anytime possible. Again, the other one is exist join, and we have exist join let me show you this one. I have a query here. You need only invent table and invent trans data, but you are filtering with invent dim with invent trans origin. Again, I just want to purchase record, but we are using this for filtering. Then also we are not using field list. Then all the fields are coming for this select statement. It's not wise to use like this. If you just want to filter record and you don't have any business with the table, you can easily use exist join like this. I'm using exist join like this, and it's way faster than the other statement. So if you just want to filter record with table, you don't need any fields from that table, then you can use exist or not exist join. They are very easy to use, and it's best practice to use for performance issues. The last one is use query framework. There are lots of query select statement which can be used in a query state like query, especially if there is a conditions, one then more conditions, then you can easily manipulate this with query framework. But instead we are creating lots of if, else, and select statements. It's not best practice to use like this. Query framework is not hard. When you understand the logic, it's very easy, and you can easily manipulate the select statement with object-oriented select statement, queries. So you can easily use that one, and again, it's very easy, and some functionalities supported by query framework, like having or limit, etc. So query framework is good for you. You can use easily. Again, for select statement and database transaction, etc., there are lots of important subjects, but these are the ones I want to talk about for now. Let me go to the other one. Yes, form code, active method, and display method. I'm not sure why, but we like to write code in forms. But forms, especially in old version, is not good for code. Form should not contain too much methods. It should only contain actually visual related code, like visible some field or enable some button, etc. It should not contain complex method of database transactional code, inserting, updating, or selecting the codes, etc. If you write these kind of codes in forms, it cannot be used in another object, so it's only used in forms. It's not good for object-oriented logic, so don't put too much code in forms. Also, don't write complex code in active method. Active method works for every records, and most of the time, if one form is slow. It's related to active method or display methods. So be careful about using these two. If you have a complex requirement in active method, be careful and make some major changes in form design. And also, grid should not contain too many display fields. Display fields are great. You know, we like them a lot, but if you have especially a aggregated display field in grids, it makes form very slow. Be careful about that too. Also, do not write code in subcontrols. Like I see lots of the time, for example, a lookup method in sub-objects. Of course, you will call these methods from that sub-objects, click method or lookup method, etc. But the actual code must be in, if it's a lookup in table or in a class, etc. So use these sub-methods, sub-control methods to call actual method. Don't write the actual code in that. Again, it cannot be used again, and it's not a good practice to use. The second, the other topic is naming. Also, especially in Turkey, we have lots of problems in naming because we like to use Turkish names, but it's not again best practice to use other than US English, because we are working a global economy right now, and you don't know what will happen. Also, there are lots of Microsoft engineers who will engage with you, so you should write all codes in US English. Also, spelling must be correct. And I see lots of underscore used in systems. With extension, we also use underscore, but don't use in standard naming. And you know, we used underscore only for extended classes. Other than that, especially in table names, don't use underscore. We have a basic naming standard, like for example, we are using business area name like cost, price, etc., and business area description, for example, cost invoice. Then action performed for class or type of content for table, like this one, cost invoice printout or price text copy or delete. These are the main logic, and all the tables are, all the standard objects are like this, and you can check out their names and give similar names to your objects. Also, you know, when you create a new, especially design objects or new objects, they're automatically generated names. They have automatically generated names. Don't use this one. Change the proper names, because when you're trying to find something, it's important to have good names. It's also, again, best practice. For variables and extension, I have some examples. Let's look at them. For variables, we are using same name like this. You know, these examples are good. You can use a table buffer name like this, cost table, cost trans. You know, we are using camel case, and first letter must be small, then all the other start with the upper case. You can use like this. If you have two variables like this, you can use translate or line translate, etc. But if you use like this, it's not easy to read the code. You know, I am frustrated to see this kind of usage, because when I want to understand what is T, what is empty, or always I need to look up and go back, etc. So it's very hard to understand code. So don't use like this. Always use open and understandable name for your variables. The other one is extension. With extension, we have confused, right? It's very hard to follow extension names, but there is a logic you can follow. Also, there is a tool our friends published. You can use that tool too. In GitHub, you can find that it's created automatically names for you. For extension, if you extended, for example, cast table, used this prefix. Most of the time, I am using this prefix. I am using my package as a prefix, but you can use your model or your prefix, etc. It's not that important, but use prefix like this. For class, again, I am using prefix like this. But for forms, you need to add form like this. Cast table form underscore DMR underscore extension. And the last one is most tricky one. I am extending a forms data source. For this, it's best practice to use first form name, then add a form, then prefix, then your data source, then extension. So it's a very long name, I know, but it's best practice, and it's not. When you write like this, it will be unique, and people can find easily. And when they look, they can understand. Okay, what is this? Easily understand the object. Okay. Code placements. Okay. Again, when we talk about forms, we talk about this. Form should not contain too much code and should only contain visually related codes. And table should contain data related codes, and class should contain process management codes. What I am trying to tell with this, for example, if you in our table we talk about we will create a journal. Most of the time, especially juniors, write this code in forms. Don't write in this code in form. It should be in class, right? It should not be in table. Also, table should only contain data-related code, like our find method, exist method, or lookups, or insert updated codes we are writing. Table should contain data-related codes, but class should contain process management, like invoicing, creating a journal, etc. Be careful about that. Most of the time, people are writing codes directly in forms. It's not good for best performance or good object-oriented logic, etc. The other one is duplication. With extension, I see a lot of object duplication. Be careful about that too. When you duplicate an object, you are losing a standard application and standard update or fix, etc. Class and form or table duplication is not too much, but method duplication is too many. I see a lot of method duplication because of extension. They don't want to struggle with extension, or they are not they are not making possible with extension some requirement, and they are duplicating the methods. But most of the time, one method is not enough. So when you duplicate a method, you need to duplicate the other methods which used in that method, etc. So it will become hard to follow. Also, you cannot leverage from fixes, updates, etc. It's not good practice to use duplication, object duplication. Okay, the other one is change company and cross company. You know, we have a company-based structure. We have data area ID in our table, and we sometimes need to do things in other companies. So we are using change company for that. But when you use change company, be careful because it takes time, and when you use it wrongly, it slows your application. Let me show you an example for that too. Here I have an example for this one. No, this I will show you that one later. Let me. Okay, this one. Dynamic summary test table. I have a company ID and I am creating for example, inventory journal here. Think like that. So I am changing company in every record, and this takes lots of time. Let me run this one. You can see it takes 1 second almost, because in every record it changed the company. But if you write like this, first I group by my company ID and changed, and then I select the other records for that company, then do the by business. It will way faster than the normal one. As you can see, in a small amount of data, it makes sense to use like this. So be careful about change company. Do not use too much. As I said, it's a time-consuming thing, so your application will slow down. Be careful about that. The second one, when you use change company and select the record like this, and if you not used these null or clear methods, let me show you an example. You can see I have 2 records, 1 and 2 in USMF. Then I am changing company to USSI, but I am still using seeing USMF record, because in my table buffers range, it still has USMF range, and it's not changing. For avoiding this, you need to clear your table buffer or set to null. Then if you do that, again, now you can see the actual result. So be careful when you select a record in change company, then you need to clear, or you need to set a null for that table buffer. Otherwise, you are seeing wrong records. Okay, be careful about using this. Also, we have cross-company functionality. If you want to select one or more than one company or another company records, you don't need to use change company. You can use cross-company, and with cross-company you can select other companies' records in one statement. So it's, again, more easy to use like this. Okay, let me go back to my slides. Okay, the other one is comment. Also, there are lots of issues in commenting. First of all, in my opinion, do not use comment that repeats code. If code is speaking, I don't need to read a comment. So write code clear, and then don't comment it, because if you comment exactly what the code is done, it's not good, and it makes code unreadable. So code should speak, the comment should not repeat code. Also, do not use multiple line syntax for commenting. You use single line syntax. Also, I don't see too much to do right now, but I see in live codes to do. So if you have too much to do, make sure you clear them too. The last one is, I think, one of the most important ones: remove commented codes. Especially if you are not sure, you are commenting all old codes and then creating new ones, and let me show you an example. I have, for example, you have this code, but these are the commented codes before you did some changing in your statement. For example, you use this one to create a range. Then you are commenting other codes in like this. And back then, I know we don't use version control. Then we need to follow the old codes, etc. And we have this kind of bad habits. But right now in Dynamics 365, we have version control. We don't need these kind of code commands. It's bad for code reading. So don't delete these commented codes and clear the codes. Okay. Also use curly brackets for all your statements. If you have a if statement or while statement, you always use curly brackets. Back then there were some problems with this. When you not use this one, and when someone commented out your code, then it became a difficult problems for you because your statement contains another line. So always use curly brackets. It's sometimes it's argued in software ecosystem, but for me it's best practice to use curly brackets if it is one line. Again, always use curly brackets. And the other one is hard code. You know, I see this one not often right now. It's became more people learn this, but still there are lots of hard codes. When I code review, I see lots of hard codes. First of all, for objects, for objects, you can use form ctr or table method ctr like this. Don't use directly names like this. The second one is, if you have a variable like this, you should create a parameter for that. So don't use directly a value in your code. It's not a good way to use. Also, like this, don't use hard code in your code like this. And lastly, best practice for object-oriented programming. You know, object-oriented programming is a concept, and it's used in our product. For that, there are lots of details. You know, the basic detail: inheritance, polymorphism, encapsulation, etc. Learn these concepts and follow them. Especially for me, there are lots of codes, very long methods, doing all the things in one method, etc. So method should do one thing, one dedicated thing, and it must be not more than 2 pages. So the single responsibility principle is this: if method has one single responsibility, then you can call it when you need this requirement. But if one method doing more than 2 things, then you cannot use, because every time you need one functionality, you cannot use that method. You need to create another method, etc. So method should have single responsibilities, and with that you can use this method anytime you need to use this functionality. Also, I see lots of conditional statements, and it makes the codes and methods very long and unreadable. And avoid these condition statements, make more inheritance style code, so then these conditions is not that big. Also, I see lots of static methods. Last year, when I was code reviewing, I see a class. All the codes, it was creating a ledger journal, and it has only a main method, and all the code was in main method. So it's not okay. creating class is correct, but you should create a class with object-oriented logic, not just use a static method for your business. It's not good practice to use static methods for business logic. Static methods should have small dedicated jobs not related to your object. So be careful about using static methods. And this is I think my time also up, so I can look at the Q&A. If we have any question, I can answer. Let me check the. Okay. There are lots of things. I am trying to find the top.
Thank you, Fatih. Yeah, it looks as though Sahib and Nathan have answered many of the questions in the chat.
Yes.
I don't know if you can see anything that stands out to you.
Yes, I see. Also, we don't have much time. So if you have any question, you can email me or you can add me in LinkedIn or Twitter or YouTube. I will try to answer your questions.
Thank you so much. Again, round of applause for Fatih. And always a great pleasure. You've been a regular speaker now at this boot camp, so really grateful for your support and sharing your experience. So once again, thank you, Fatih.
Thank you. I hope it was a good session, and I'm trying to do my best to do this session. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for people who listen us.
Thank you, Fatih. Thank you, Fatih. Excellent. Yeah, thank you.